Welcome back to Professional Perspectives. I'm Marvakella, joined by my co-host Praneeth Vimori. Every once in a while, we have the opportunity to speak with someone whose career wasn't built around a business idea. It was built around a life-changing experience. Today's guest transformed an incredibly difficult chapter for life into a mission that's empowering thousands of people around the world.
In 2021, Shelby Perry lost her eye in a snowboarding accident. While recovering, she quickly realized there wasn't a community that truly addressed the emotional side of eye loss, the identity shift, the confidence, and the feeling of starting over. Instead of accepting the reality, she decided to change it. Today, she's the founder and the owner of EYEHESIVE, a company that not only creates innovative adhesive eye patches, but also builds a global community that encourages people with eye loss to embrace their stories with confidence rather than hide them.
What really stood out to us while preparing for this conversation is that Shelby didn't start by building a product. She started by building people. The community came first and the business followed. It's a reminder that some of the best companies begin by solving a deeply personal problem. Shelby, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to episode 26 of Professional Perspectives.
Thank you so much for having me on. I loved that introduction. Sometimes I get emotional hearing that introduction and kind of my story back. So thank you for really painting that picture of what my journey has kind of been, and I know we're going to go deeper into all of that, but I'm super happy to be here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And so let's say to kick off the conversation, before your accident, what did you imagine your career and life looking like?
Yeah, before my accident, and I talk about this, but my life I feel like was pretty average. I had a job that I thought that I would just be at for the rest of my life. I was in this mindset and the mentality of, go to work, pay your bills, be a good human. And it was just very I call it kind of like this hamster wheel feeling. I didn't really know, I have the awareness at that time to know what I know now, but looking back on it, I was like, oh, I was really kind of stuck. Of course, I was still happy and living life, but I wasn't expanding myself. I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't, stretching myself for what I believed was possible. I thought what was possible was pretty limited back then. I had a very, very limited mindset. And so I lived like that for a long time. And the accident really did something and shook me up inside where that has been completely shifted for me in the last, 6 years.
Yeah, and you're kind of talking about that shift, right? Where you're kind of going to the overworked lifestyle, maybe where you don't really know what's going on, to kind of finding more so of a purpose. And I think that can be better classified like maybe like an identity shift. Uh, so when do you first realize you wanted to do this, and what kind of motivated you to kind of follow through and stay so dedicated to your mission?
Yeah, so after the injury, I wasn't thinking business really or really identity shift or anything like that. I was just thinking it was really hard to transition from one eye or from two eyes to one eye. It was a lot of healing. I didn't know anybody that had one eye. I didn't know what the prosthetic eye process looked like. I felt very alone, confused, uncertain about my future and about all of the things. So all I knew at that time was I need to find one person that has one eye, or has lost an eye or has had an eye injury or wears a prosthetic eye, because I need to talk to someone so I can relate and kind of get questions answered. And I also knew I was like, maybe I can help someone with my story and hopefully, they can help me. And so with social media, I went to social media first and it was simply the context then was find one person that you can help and that they can help you.
Yeah, I really like that mission actually. It sounds like a great way how you took something like an accident and turned it into a potential opportunity to connect with people as well. And was there like a specific moment when you decided that your story could be someone else's source of hope?
Yeah, so as soon as I started to kind of and it felt good to kind of share my story online. I am a more open person, and so just putting out there, I called them kind of like little journal entries almost of that process, what I was going through, kind of my thoughts and feelings at that time. It felt really good to express that, to put that out there. Obviously, I was receiving a ton of love and support and comments, and then people started kind of flooding in I can relate, or this helped, or this happened to me. So as kind of two-sided there, putting it out there felt really good for me. And as I was doing that, more and more people were coming in that had experienced eye injury or eye loss. And I had no idea that the community was so big. And, it kind of took off from there. But as soon as more and more people started showing up within this like social media platform, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a lot out here. And I could tell that there was like a massive need. I wasn't the only one that felt alone or that needed more support or resources. I could see this massive gap in community, in being able to support one another. And so it was pretty quick within building that social media platform that like I knew there was a need for community and connection first and foremost. And so we actually had our first like iConnect virtual conference. I've led 4 of those at this point as well too, so it was definitely like this community coming together, supporting one another with our stories. And that just kind of showed up. It's pretty apparent, when people were kind of flooding in with like questions and their stories and wanting to connect and stuff as well too.
Yeah, that's actually really awesome and cool to hear that you were able to kind of evolve your story into a sense of community building where you were kind of able to build that community and kind of increase that moment. And it's actually really cool to see that happen. And to talk more about like kind of your growth after the injury, right? What helped you rebuild confidence during the moments you struggled the most?
Yeah, so and I share this a lot because IHESIV's really taken on a lot of different forms where I've actually worked one-on-one and done a lot of coaching and have ran community memberships. So I've worked with a lot of the community members. And my process is, what I've taken them through. And it is this sharing of the story because I think there's so many times where we have these thoughts or these feelings, these emotions, and we need to express them, or it starts to feel like shame or, like we're hiding or there's just underlining, resentment that starts to build up when things happen to us, and so there's this big piece of like sharing your story. And of course I'm like, you don't need to do it on social media, but I think there's so much power in owning your story, being able to talk about it, to put yourself out there. The second big piece is helping someone else with your story, even if it's just like one person. So that usually comes from sharing your story, or someone needs some advice or you have something that could be of value to them from your story. So being able to really help someone with your story. And then this like third piece is, finding purpose within your story as well too. So like those 3 things is really what I walked myself through, like sharing my story, finding people that I could be of service to, and then finding my purpose, which my purpose became Ihesive and this full blown business that's just like ever growing. But at the same time, I work with a lot of clients and their purpose is like that's actually made them a better husband or a better wife or a better parent, or it's like shifted again what we talked about, like their identity or just the way that they're moving or the way that they see themselves. So really creating your own why around your story. I think anyone that has like a life altering injury or event, if you can, there's not going to be always like this like apparent why. I think sometimes we really have to go in there and like create that for ourselves or create that sense of purpose from our story and whatever that could mean. Like I know people that write books or start podcasts or build a community or put out a product or just simply like these internal perspective shifts is what helps us to move through those really challenging moments.
Yeah, and something that I really noticed is that I think connections are really strong, as you said, like being part of the community, sharing your stories. And you kind of touched on it a little bit on how it made them better husbands, better wives. How did your relationships with friends and family evolve after your injury?
I love this question. I do really believe that it forced me to like slow down so much that it made me like kind of reevaluate myself. Like I started asking myself like these really deep questions because I had this moment in time and space where nothing else was going on except for my healing. And so while I'm laying there in bed, I'm asking myself like, well, who do you want to be, Shelby? How do you want to show up? Like what are the relationships that you want to have? Like how do you want to hold those relationships? And by asking those like really important questions, it started, making me show up in these relationships differently and asking for help and then receiving help. Because I know a lot of times we get in this phase in our life, or where we don't need help, we don't want to ask for help. We don't want to receive help and actually like in those moments especially, but that's, like, carried with me, like, being able to ask for help and receive help has been like a game changer, in my life and in what I do and how I show up and how I take care of myself. And then just again, these like deeper conversations are really identifying the people that I want in my life, who is there, who's always going to be there, the types of relationships that I want to have moving forward as well too. So of course, it's like how I show up and the better that I show up. I create those stronger relationships with my family and friends.
Yeah, and I feel like already through your answers, we were able to get a lot of pieces of advice, especially one being able to ask for help, especially for high schoolers, which is like the majority of our audience. That's usually like a problem, which is kind of hard to being able to kind of be in like a vulnerable position and being able to ask for help, family or friends. And I feel like that's actually an amazing piece of advice. So yeah, thank you for that. And I just want to ask, like, what misconceptions do people usually have, like, about living with eye loss?
Yeah. Yeah, and just to touch on the asking for help, yeah, it's because I think we always think it's like or think it's like a weakness, or yeah, I guess a weakness. But when I ask for help, it like advances me so much further now. So it's like in business, when I ask a mentor for help or a colleague for help, or I go searching for answers, it's like it actually is a strength. And so I do love that we get to talk about that, and especially with high schoolers, and it's such a challenging time that we go through so many things. So not being afraid to ask for help and really looking at it as a strength rather than a weakness. And then to answer your question, probably a lot because, well, I'll speak just from my own experience. So, people often, so that with the prosthetic eye, and you can see if I don't know, if, like people can see this, but it's a fun, what we call a fun eye. So it's a decorative prosthetic eye. This one is like white and black checkered, but I have multiple. I've got one with like a heart, and I've got, one that's like all shimmery and sparkly. So I've got a bunch of different like fun eyes that have different designs. But I often get people asking like, can you still see? Can you see out of it? So they think like once you have a prosthetic eye, you're either completely blind back there and the eye is still there, or the eye's been completely removed. And so I can't see out of it. I'll never be able to see out of it, most likely in my lifetime. I know Elon Musk is working on some things, but I probably will never, have vision in that eye again. But yeah, that's a like common question with the prosthetic eyes, or people think that it's a contact. I also think that people think that maybe, I can't drive, but I actually can still drive even with one eye. I do have like depth perception issues, but that is something that is very like manageable and you can work through it. I know when it comes to like eye loss, blindness and things like that are a spectrum. And so luckily, I don't have any damage to my seeing eye, so I can still see clearly out of this eye and see very well. But if we're talking other types of eye loss, sometimes it's, there's different a spectrum. So sometimes you can see shadows or lights. And even, with a blind eye, like mine's been completely removed. So it's completely black. There's nothing there. But people that have had torn retinas, like they're blind in that eye, but maybe they could still see shadows or lights. And so it's a spectrum when it comes to vision loss. And then also when you have a prosthetic eye, and if you're wearing a prosthetic eye, you cannot see anything out of it.
Yeah, I think it's also so great that you've built this community. And so kind of touching on that where you can address these misconceptions and stuff, how did iHesive like turn from this community to actually introducing a business and going from support network into a company?
So as the community was building, we started, with the conferences. So it's always kind of like had this more entrepreneur, this business mentality rather than just like a Facebook like forum or just a group. Like we have sold merch in the past, the conferences were like a whole production. So we had tickets and there was speakers and it was like an entire day long event online. And then the memberships, like there's always been so much deeper with like either coaching. And so what I've done one-on-one coaching or, just the community aspect has had a lot of value driven, result driven, not the community's, a strong thing, but there is this like identity shift, owning their story, showing up online. So there's been a lot of different elements that we've taken throughout iHesive and really creating more than just a community, but like strong value and strong results within the brand. And then also at the very beginning, while I was laying in bed recovering, I was using eye patches all of the time because between like eye injury and eye removal, the eye was like blind, damaged, discolored, and then also after I got the eye removed, from eye removal to prosthetic is a pretty long process, and so I was eye patching through that whole first year, and I just did not like the options on the market. I just felt like they were really big. They were very kid friendly, like unicorns and rainbows, but I was like, I just want something that's very like sleek, thin, discreet, well-fitting, like as an adhesive eye patch, because I didn't like the ones that like kind of like strapped around your head either. And so it was kind of like this little hit, like this intuitive hit that I got at the beginning, like maybe you could make better options for eye patches. And I started, on that search. But since this is like such a good message for anyone too, this is my first time building a business or sourcing anything or putting a product to market. It took me literally 4 years from like idea, which was like laying in bed, to actually getting the product on the market. So we launched last June 20th of 2025, but it was 4 years of like, yeah, building social media, offering all of these community, spaces, really building the brand itself while working on getting this product. And I share this all the time too, because it's like, if I had given up at any point before then or changed my mind, it's just like sometimes these things do take time, and patience is sometimes hard when we have social media and we see people like overnight success and we want it right away, and we're human. So we love the instant, but things that are really worth it and you're building it from the ground up, like it's going to take years. And so, yeah, it took me 4 years, put it on the market, and that's when it really kind of transformed once again from community spaces offering coaching, being more of this, I guess, a coaching business model, to now we're like more e-com business model with the community is still a strong through line.
Yeah, I definitely agree about what you said about like I feel like in a society where like social media is so prevalent and everyone like kind of markets instant success, instant like 0 to 60 days able to like a multi-million-dollar business. People definitely get the wrong idea of what it actually takes, and I feel like what you highlighted is very important for our audience. That it definitely will take time and hard work and dedication and persistence to finally see your success pay off. And then I do want to say that it's really cool to see how confident you are and how you're able to kind of answer these questions, and talk about all your downfall, like the vulnerabilities too, and kind of talk about it really confidently. So that's really cool. And I did want to like for our audience who doesn't really have like an idea of adhesive, right? We talked about it being a community, but we also talked about it being like econ related. Could you kind of give us like a rundown about how it started initially and like what you guys are doing now and how it kind of changed from ideation to June 20th of last year and now where it's at? We started off as a community, and
Mhm.
then so after that you evolved into selling products. Is that what? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So the product, like I said, came as like an idea at the very beginning. It just like honestly, it just took way longer than I thought it was going to. So even the name EYEHESIVE was built around these adhesive eye patches. So that was like, I knew I wanted to help someone with my story. I knew I wanted to be on social media, but the product was something that like from the jump I wanted to put on the market. It just honestly took 4 years to do it. And so, but my whole idea behind it was like, just keep building, Shelby. Like, what else can you offer the community right now? Which was like more community spaces. Like, we just did a retreat in Tulum, Mexico. We're going to do another one. So it was just like kind of looking at what I had available to me. Like, what can I keep doing? Well, I can keep posting content. I can keep reaching out to people. I can keep bringing people into space. I can keep giving value to people through the different, offers that we had at the time. And at the same time, I'm working on getting this product to market. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I was just thinking the whole time. Like, just keep showing up online, building this brand and this community, and the product's going to come eventually. And so, once we launched that in June of last year, we still do community stuff, but it's just a little less because I'm now focused on scaling, an eye patch company. And so, which takes, a lot. So it's like a little bit less of the community spaces that I was running before, which were like tons of them, every month. And now it's like we do one a month, and really more pushing content and sales and, the product.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure it's been so rewarding because it's not just a product, but it's also helping so many people who are in a similar situation to you. Has there ever been like a message that you received that's just been so rewarding and like made you feel like you made an impact in this community?
I honestly get them, like, all of the time. I feel like so blessed and grateful, but yeah, we I get DMs and comments, like, almost every day, and I haven't, like, added to that folder, but at the beginning, and I do recommend everybody doing this too if you're on social media, but I do screenshot all of them and keep them into a folder. I used to go back and, like, look at them a lot more. But yeah, absolutely, if you're building on social media, like, anything sweet and nice, like, save that because, there's always gonna be those little trolls that come through, or a hater, or someone that doesn't understand or has an opinion, and often when we get those, they, like, obviously hurt and weigh a little heavier, and so I've always if I've, had a negative person on my page, like I can go back and like read all of the positive impact that I have made, through comments and DMs. And, we've got reviews on our website and stuff as well too, which we just got some reviews in the last few days that I've just like, oh, it's like so emotional because it's like, you're right. It's more than just a product. These people's like lives are being changed because now they have the confidence to share their story or to leave the house, or they just love the way that the eye patch fits and works for them in their lifestyle. So it's like, really empowering to read people's transformations and how they are able to show up in their life now that they have community, that they see other people doing it, and they have a product that is the better than anything that they've had prior.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I feel like it must also feel really rewarding when you have so many people like in your DMs telling you how amazing your product is or how much you've really helped them, and that's so cool to hear. And talking like about adhesive, I feel like we've described it more than just like a brand. It's more so like a movement, right? So,
Mhm.
what does the one eye era mean to you?
Yeah, so that when I era started, we had a membership that I ran for 2 years from like 2022 to 2024, and it was called the One Eye Era membership. And now like our space is still called that, and like the One Eye Era retreat. But it really just felt because it was like I was stepping into my own one eye era. It was like that season in time. I had one eye at that point for about 1 year, and it just felt like this moment of like, okay, this is my era and I want to like own it and embrace it and be there and be in the moment. And so I'm all like this empowerment, you know, is like so big for me. Um, and so yeah, just that's and then we, started getting all of these people in, and whether they a lot of the community have grown up with one eye. They had an eye injury or eye cancer as a child. They've grown up with one eye. Some people are like, really old, even like in their 80s. We've had people, but everybody's like embracing their like one eye era and what that means for them and their story and how they're showing up and connecting and meeting other people with one eye. And plus the word arrow was like really trending then too with Taylor Swift and the Eras tour and stuff. So it just felt very like fitting. And but I just really, really, still even 5 years in, I'm like, this is still like my one eye era, and I just feel like that's always gonna kind of be a piece of my story. It's not all of who I am, but it's definitely like a piece that I get to bring forth every day in my life.
That's so amazing to hear how big this community impact is. Like I'm sure it was so rewarding to go through such an experience like that, but knowing how many people there were around. I do have a question. So after the injury first did happen, when did you realize that there is going to be a visible difference, and like when did it start hitting you? Was it immediately or did it slowly like occur to you later on? And what advice would you give to someone who's realizing, oh, I'm going to have a visible difference in my appearance now?
Yeah, so I was really hopeful at the beginning that, like, because the doctors were also really hopeful, which it does seem to be more common the more I talk to people. Like, the doctors they don't remove if unless they have to, they try not to remove the eye right away because they do want to see if you'll restore any vision. Um, So I just felt like I really did feel like pretty naive at the beginning. I'm like, "Oh, miracles happen. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm gonna be able to see again. I'll look," like I didn't couldn't comprehend like the whole thing at the beginning, and I just stayed really, really hopeful and really positive. And it was, obviously didn't look great because of like the trauma and the injury. But then about a week or 2 weeks after, when that stuff kind of started to, like, the swelling went down, the visible like trauma, but now it's just like the eye, and you could tell that it was like discolored and shrinking. And I'm like, oh, this, isn't looking great. And there's didn't look like it's gonna make a full recovery. And so I would say, relatively quick, we started to notice that it wasn't, and those things do change pretty quick when it comes to eye injuries, that there was going to be a visible difference, but I still didn't know like what that was going to mean. I guess I was still kind of naive to like the whole process. And so I would say, yeah, I just really, really at the beginning stages was just trying to stay so hopeful and so positive. And I think that really helped me, in the whole transition and the whole process. And again, I was just asking for help and letting people, because there's a lot going on in that phase too, where your whole body's trying to like heal this injured eye. And so I had no energy. You're also trying to adapt because I was blind immediately in this eye. So you're trying to adapt immediately, seeing out of one eye and strengthening your seeing eye. And I felt like dizzy and really nauseous. And there's like all these things going on as well too. But I was just really trying to slow down, to rest as much as possible. I like really, really let myself rest. So I always share that with people. Like, if you can, I know sometimes it's hard if you've got families and careers and stuff, but whatever you can do to rest, to heal, to stay positive. And then, once I found out that they were gonna remove the eye and I was on the prosthetic eye journey, that's when it kinda really hit me like, "Oh, like, this is lifelong, and we're not, like, coming back to normal, quote, unquote, from this." And so that's what the moment I went to social media and started searching people with one eye, people with prosthetic eyes, and just seeing I saw some creators out there with one eye, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Seeing one other person that had one eye and a prosthetic eye, and just knowing that I wasn't alone really, really helped me. And then again, kind of, stepping into those next things I talked about, sharing my story, helping other people, and creating my purpose. But, I think at least, we're never alone. There's someone that shares a similar story or similar experience. So being able to find that person, staying really positive and hopeful, and then just like really allowing yourself to like rest and to be in the moment, to feel what you need to feel if you're going through something like this. Like, I wasn't trying to like hide or push away any of my feelings. I just let whatever come up kind of come up. And it really took a full year to really heal through all of that. So it was like slower, longer, and harder than I would have expected. And so, and I see people in the same situation and maybe experiencing some different things, but similar. And again, we want it to be fast and we want it to be on the other side, and we just want to be normal and back to our like regular lives. But if you can really just know that like a full year, like and take that time, it's going to be so much easier. And once I hit that like year mark, something shifted where I was like, okay, I can live like this. It's going to be okay. And I've got everything that I need. So, long answer.
No, that was totally fine, and I feel like your strength and confidence is really admirable, and about how you're able to share your story, and I feel like that's going to also really resonate with our audience. So now, like looking forward, beyond adhesive eye patches, what bigger vision do you have for adhesive? Maybe like a few years down the lane, what do you expect the brand to become?
Yeah, so we've actually just put a secondary product on the market. It's on pre-order right now, so we haven't done like a big campaign or launch, but I really, again, being in the community for 5 years and working, closely with people and listening to what their needs are and problems and where they're at. It's like, okay, we go through these eye injuries, we need the eye patches. Some people have to patch forever. There's a lot of reasons that someone has to patch, but we've got like a better option for that. Now we have one eye, we're living with one eye. And the next concern, personally, and what I've seen in the community is just protecting the vision that we have left, and really maintaining the health and integrity of that eye. And also, and I say this, I'm like, it's not just for people with one eye, it's for our whole world that uses so much screens. We're always on our computer and our iPads and our iPhones and TVs and stuff. And I'm pro tech. Like, I run a business, I love social media, I'm on these devices all of the time. And I started to notice like how tired and drained and red my eye was getting. I started to hear how everyone's fear was like, what if I lose vision in my good eye? And I have that same fear too. It's like I want to like maintain my vision for as long as I can. And I feel like the devices that we use aren't conducive to that. And I'm not like, stay off your computers and phones. But I really started to research like, what can we do? And why is this topic not being, I feel like it's not being talked about too much. Of course, we've got like blue light glasses, which I do use, and there's, you know, yeah, so that, but then I was like sort of researching ingredients and things that we could do to help prevent, vision loss and help protect against blue light and the amount of screens and technology that we use. And so I've actually created a supplement. It's called the Vision Defense Supplement. And so, like I said, it's on my website. It's on pre-order. We're doing a big launch here, but the entire, idea is just like hydrating nutrients for the vision that we have left. And, if you've got two eyes, it works for two eyes as well too, but really bringing forth this like future of eye care, this future of like technology is not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to get closer and closer. We're going to have like, the meta glasses where our phone's like right in our like eyeballs. But like, how do we just protect and maintain the health and integrity of our vision? And I really believe it's like supplements. Plus it, it goes a little bit deeper, which, me already, I'm already like building this community around that, this movement around that, where it is like, can we drink more water, get outside more, spend some designated time off of our screens, take our supplements, eat well, and then at the same time, like continue to create and build, the visionary lives that we have as well too.
Yeah, and I really like how you're still like so focused on continuing to improve this community and to keep benefiting, not just bringing products in, but products that actually benefit the whole entire community, including the not just the one eye community, but also the two eye community. I think that's really great. And so, finally, kind of wrapping up the episode for our last question, we like to ask, what would people think of Shelby Perry years from now? What kind of impact do you want your work to have left on the world?
Like when I die, you mean just like the legacy I want to leave?
In
Yeah.
like the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely feel this real strong pull around like protecting your vision, and I kind of have a play on words with this because I like your physical vision. Like, I really want to be pioneering and like leading this pathway of like taking care of your eyes, like bringing this more to the forefront of the conversation because it's like, we go to the gym, we eat well, we work out, we take our probiotics, we do our skin, hair, nails, um, gut health, like everything I feel like is so dialed in and we're on top of it. But for some reason, I just don't see this conversation around like, are you going to the eye doctors regularly? Like, how are your eyes like really feeling? Are you protecting your vision, your physical vision at all cost? Taking the screen breaks, using the supplements, to really protect from the inside out, but then also like protecting your vision for your life. I love working with like creatives and people that do, podcasts and write books and entrepreneurs and content creators. And I'm such a visionary myself. And I really love to continue to promote people that are visionaries and dreamers and have that edge to them. And they just want to be out there creating and giving value to the world. So it's like protecting that vision too, because it's like, not just from like other people, but sometimes we're our own worst critics, and with self-doubt and fear of putting ourselves out there and stuff as well too. So it's protecting your physical vision at all costs, but then protecting that vision you have for your life at all costs and like following through and like going after that with everything that you got.
Shelby, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. One of the biggest takeaways from today is that the greatest challenges don't just define our limitations, but they can actually become the foundation for our greatest impact. Your willingness to be open about your journey has created a space where so many others can feel understood, supported, and empowered.
I think what stood out most is that EYEHESIVE isn't just solving a problem, it's changing the conversation. You saw something that was missing, built a community around it, and then created solutions that continue to improve people's life. That's a very powerful example of purpose-driven entrepreneurship.
Again, thank you so much for joining us on Professional Perspectives and for reminding us that resilience isn't just about avoiding hardship, but it's actually about choosing what you build from it. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us for episode number 26. We hope today's conversation inspires you to embrace your own story, find your own purpose through adversity, and never underestimate the impact one person can have when they're willing to create change that they wish existed. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to Professional Perspectives, and see you in episode number 27.